Alright, I think we are ready to have a real streaming time. Everything's still set up. Yeah, man, it's hard to get all those links fixed over. Insubot's still linking to the wrong thing. I have to I don't know, the only two people I know who can probably fix that are, well, I don't know. Actually, I know for sure that Insofar could fix it, and I feel like Miblo on any chat knows how to deal with Insobot. I might be wrong, but I just feel like that's the case. Maybe someone else here also knows how to deal with Insobot, but I am not one of those type. Alright. Let's get this thing started. So, we're gonna do all of these in this one tweak because it's kind of half bug, half tweak. And that'll be it for this build. And then the next build I will start working on feature stuff. So, let's just start from the top. List all locations of type definition of identifier. So let me run this in the debugger so as not to crash my running editor. I need to figure out what this is bound to. Experiments. Where is this thing? Code. Power experiments. Stream to do. This is other more serious bug where 4coder not only uses the old position of the buffer, but it uses the wrong position of the buffer sometimes. And I can't really remember why that's happening, but it is. Let's put this right here. So, list all locations of type definition of identifier. List all. Okay, it's not in here. It's in what? Search. List all locations of type. Where? Okay, you know what? List all locations of type. Alright, it's bound to Alt capital D. And it's defined in default include. Alright. Let me come over here. I'll grab why aren't those being alphabetically sorted? Has it always not sorted the files, or? Yeah, I don't understand. Space. List all locations of identifier. All locations. Search. Locations of type. Oh, Alt Shift T for the of identifier version. Okay. There we go. Perfect. So string size is coming back as a what? Wait, what? Get token or word. Alright, so just right in here, we get a view, we get a buffer, get token or word under position. Okay. Okay. Default include 474. String size is greater than 0. Ooh, uppercase is sorted above lowercase. That could actually be it. You're right. FRU. Yep. Okay, so there is one thing checked off the list. What does 4coder do that other text editors / IDEs don't? Two main things so far. I wouldn't. Jim says it works fast. I wouldn't say that it actually does that. It works faster than Visual Studio. It's actually like slower than, say, Vim, Sublime, and Emacs at this point. Although, no, scratch that. It's not slower than Emacs, but it is slower than the other ones sometimes. Sometimes under the right circumstances. What it does do that's definitely puts it in a class of its own as far as I'm concerned is C++ or C or basically any language you want can be the customization language because it's just like a raw API that you link to rather than a scripting language. And virtual whitespace. Not everyone uses virtual whitespace, but I think that if you're using 4coder without virtual whitespace, then I don't personally understand why you're not using something better. So other people like the C++ customization so much that they will use it for just that. For me, if all I had ever done was make it C++ customizable, I wouldn't care because I don't have the time to write all the customizations to make it have all the features anyway. It's just more clarity to me about what the customization layer I have actually does for me. But the virtual whitespace is the thing I actually let me put it this way, when I was adding new features to 4coder, it slowed down tremendously after virtual whitespace, because that was kind of when I hit the point that I was like, now I'm no longer asking myself if I have something better I could be using. But that's just me. Not everyone even likes it, and they still use 4coder for reasons, like I said, that I don't fully understand. So the only two things I mentioned are virtual whitespace and C++ customizations. Hopefully C++ customizations make sense. Virtual whitespace is it's a little harder to describe. I can just show it to you next time I'm writing code, which is what I was planning to do. So forgive me for not explaining more. It's a bit abstract. You'll see it when I use it in a minute here. Safety check for sticky jumps in case hook is missing. Ooh, that's a tough one. Let's try and open the random table first. So I'm going to debug it. Again, just bear with me in a minute. I will show you sticky whitespace once I'm writing some code. Okay, loaded the file without any problem. No, not customizing this language of C++. I mean you customize the editor by writing C++. So like if you wanted to customize Emacs, you would have to write elisp. And if you want to customize Vim, you write like Vim scripts or some custom Vim language thing. For 4coder, you just write code that compiles to a DLL, and so that can be C++, but it can be literally anything that you want for your customization layer. Right now, people only use C++ because it is where all the support is going. But yeah, I mean in the sense that you can write your own commands and functionality into the editor by writing C++ code without having to like rewrite the editor or anything crazy, all through the customization API. Alright, so this loaded just fine. Is it about inserting text at the end that was a problem? No, that's fine. Ooh, you can't delete the last line of a file? That's weird. Okay, so I can't reproduce the crash in this case. Let me go and read the email that came with for a minute. Rupin is asking, is this for JAI? What do you mean? I mean, no? No idea, Cuber Caleb. It's just a reprofile. Alright, who was that from? Yep. When I try to open a .h file, it attaches this where the crash happens, as well as the file that causes the crash. Alright, so I have a suspicion that I've actually fixed this bug. Looking at the attached disassembly, it was a memory write. Actually, it was mem move, which is something that would be fixed by the stuff I've already fixed. So we're gonna say let's write an email to that person and ask them to report the bug again in case it's still happening, because we think it's fixed, but it's going to be a little bit difficult to confirm that it's fixed. Oops, sorry. Hey, Jesse Meyer, what's up? Alright, so I think that one is fixed. Sorry, we still haven't got an example of virtual whitespace. Now things are going to get complicated because I'm going to work on safety check for sticky jumps in case hook is missing. So what I'm talking about here, is if we go to sticky. Alright, so are you still with me, TS Josty? TS Jost, something like this. If you are, here's virtual whitespace. The idea is, normally when you're typing, let me put it in non-virtual whitespace mode, you do stuff like this, right, and the editor can automatically indent for you, foo, and stuff like that, and that's pretty nice, right? But when I start backspacing here, you can see I can do that. Now there are other things I could do. I can just go up like that. That's what people would tend to do, is go like up, delete the range, right? Delete a line like that and stuff. The idea of virtual whitespace is I never actually really want anything to show up in this region of the file except the correct indentation based on the semantics of the code, right? There's always an implied indentation that's correct, and I should never have to do very much work to tell it what I mean for this. So for instance, being able to backspace that space is a completely useless operation that I don't actually ever want to do. If I'm backspacing that, I'm either don't mean to backspace any of it and that was a mistake, or I mean to backspace all of it, in which case I want it all to happen at once. So the idea of virtual whitespace, if I turn it on, is that all of that is automatic, right? You hit backspace and it deletes the whole line. You do if, and it starts, you can see it like automatically reflows all of the text together. So I can do things like this, and now I've never once decided, oh, I need to deal with the white space there. I can then do something like foo parenthesis A, B, C, close that parenthesis to make it reflow correctly if it starts bugging you. At first it might look like that like crazy reflowing is annoying, but once you get like used to just ignoring it, it's not that big a deal really. It's a nothing thing. And then you can just come over here and be like, alright, put in a new line, X, Y, Z, put in a new line. You can see it's automatically doing that. Foo bar baz, and then you go, you know what, this was, I can just realign that like that, and it's just a couple of keystrokes. That's the virtual whitespace. It just, you never again have to do things like indenting. It also means if I do this and then if I like that, it's going to take it a minute to reflow because 4coder is a piece of shit. But if you don't change your panel layout very often and you leave it in the status where it needs to do line wrapping, you can see that when it wraps this line, it can use that indent logic to figure out where to wrap to. Does the constant reflowing have an impact on battery life? It's no more expensive. I mean, the way it's written, how should I explain this? The way it's written, all it has to do is change the float for the indentation of each line. It's a very light computational job. The most expensive part is recomputing the logic of how much to indent each line, which you have to do anytime you like are inserting braces anyway. The only difference is that I just go to the end of the file, and that's just arbitrary. I can change it, and I plan to in the next few, like in the next engine, it's going to be flexible again. Like, I didn't write it particularly well the first time to make it easy to do this, but in theory there's no reason you couldn't just say like only change the indentation for the next few lines. That way we wait until all the edits are done, and then we can say once fix the whole file, which is what you normally do anyway when you're doing text, right? Is you make a bunch of edits and it turns out the whole file doesn't need to be fixed. It's just some range that needs to be fixed. So the logic is no more expensive than if you were doing it at a textual level, re-indenting everything. In fact, it's cheaper because you don't have to reinsert a bunch of spaces everywhere. It's much cheaper. Since you're not shifting the text at all, you're actually just rendering it in different positions. JManC3 asks, how do you represent the relationship between panels when you open a lot? Is it a parent-child or something else? Yeah, it's a tree of dividers. So basically there's a root, and that root is given dimensions, and then that root basically can say I have, well, it's not quite like that. It's more like the root is okay, here's basically the idea. It's a tree, and the leaves of the tree are rectangles, and the internal nodes of the tree are all dividers, right? And every divider has two pieces of data. Is it horizontal or vertical, and what is the percentage of its like position within its range, right, from left to right, from top to bottom, depending on if it's horizontal or vertical. Then to find out the position of all the panels, all you do is you start at the top of the tree saying, here's the full size, and you descend the tree, and at the bottom, each leaf gives you one of the panels. That's the layout system. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Caleb, Joss, TS Joss, whatever you want me to pronounce that as, I don't really know. Alright, what we want to do is we want to look at this marker list stuff. So let me read some code. I'm going to switch off the chat so that I can focus for a minute. Binary search, jump location flag, marker list, handle starts, handles, jump line numbers, jump flags, handle starts. Jump line numbers, jump flags, handle count, handle max, jump max, jump count. Alright, so when I first wrote this, I was probably being a little bit sloppy because that's the way I am. I'm a dick. So we're going to fix that by doing some incremental stuff here. It's currently structure of array, and there's no reason for it to be structure of array. It's just making the code more complicated. Let's switch it to an array of structures. Jump line numbers, jump flags. So we're going to call these the jump. It's marker list. Jump marks. A jump mark consists of a line number and flags, and that's what these are right here. Jump mark jumps, and let's fix everything that. Whoa! Alright, the project file is definitely been Jimmy rigged for the test stuff. Okay. Boom, boom. Super slow build because Alan's a dick. General jump mark list jumps new jump max. There we go. That simplifies that. So that doubles that and that doubles that. So why are those uint32s and those are int32s if they're both counts and maxes? And oh my goodness, this is like unreadable nonsense, honestly. Okay, so this right here needs to say jump handle start and marker handle jump marker handle handles list handles equals gen_realloc array general jump marker handle list handles list handle max new handle max, and there we go. Jump mark was the wrong name. What I really meant was sticky jump description. No yes, no yes, no yes. What have you got for me now? Alright, so there's some progress. Let me see what the Twitch chat has to say about all this. Hey, we got Drunk Dane, what's up? Yo, 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 yo. I guess you were there this whole time and I didn't see it, my bad. Question, what other projects do you work on, or do you have plans for something after 4coder? I don't really work on anything super seriously. I mean, I have my day job stuff that I have never worked on anything that, at least so far, I've never worked on anything that wasn't internal to the company I worked at. Like, I worked for a year doing contract stuff for Molly Rocket, and then now I work at Rad, and all that stuff is non-public facing stuff. And then I also do like little games just to entertain myself once in a while, to relax and playfully do that kind of stuff, but not really seriously take them to completion. Really, it's just kind of like a creative outlet that I don't invest a lot in emotionally. Like, some people might look at that and be like, oh man, you never finish a game, isn't that kind of discouraging or something? But you have to remember, I'm not like setting out to make little games because I care about like becoming an indie who can ship games or anything like that. It's more like, when I get bored of it, I stop working on it, and that's fine because that was the level of investment I meant to put into it. I'm not trying to make my living off of those, so I don't really. I did once post about one game that I was kind of working on that I ended up turning into that situation anyway, so I just stopped mentioning it when I start new little side project games. Because there have been a few that I've done even since Cypher Drive that turned out to be a game that I was just doing until I got bored for no reason at all. Maybe just for practice on programming or something. But do I have plans for something to do after 4coder? I do have something new that I'm kind of looking at doing. Actually, I've made it on my GitHub already. If you check it out, I'll post it in the chat. It started off as just a practice thing, but I have a neat idea for it that I might see through to completion sometime in the future. So I posted in the chat. And it started off as me just following along with Bitwise, making a similar language of my own. And I didn't follow very far past the parser. I haven't even finished my own parser yet. But I intend to keep working on that a little bit at a time for that kind of practicing that kind of thing. But it got me thinking about something I might do after 4coder, which wouldn't really be a language project per se, but it would kind of, I mean, it would still basically be a 4coder project, but once 4coder proper is done, what I'll do next is probably working on other side tools that work well with my development ecosystem next to 4coder, and this would be something like that. That it would involve me making some customizations in 4coder that link up nicely with this other thing. That involves kind of um, getting back to the original vision of 4coder where you do code editing above the level of text, and the idea was to kind of, make a language that had some features that make it more ideal for that kind of treatment than what C and C++ actually let you do. Um, and so it's kind of like, what if I design the simplest possible language that is Turing complete and compiles to native, that allows me the freedom to change it however I want, so that I can make it easier to edit in 4coder at rapid paces, and then have it compile straight to C so that I'm still generating C code, right? So it would be kind of like more of an intermediate layer between your editor and the C code you're writing, was the idea. It's not going anywhere yet, but that's my next big thing if I had to pick right now. But probably by the time I'm done with 4coder proper, I'll have a different next big thing anyway. Okay. Let's see. Hide in the chat again so I can keep making good progress. Thanks for the question. So, pref jump count, new handle. Alright, there's a little bit more progress. I remember what these are now. Okay, I can finally give these real names. Okay. So this is sticky jump destination. And sticky jump source. That's what those are. Having good names for things can't actually... You can't really undervalue that. I didn't really know how to name things until very recently. Sticky jump destination, and it's a skill that, I don't know, it starts to click, and once you know how to do it in a way that's useful, you don't really remember when you started doing it, or at least for me, the experience has been, I started figuring out good ways to name things, and then I started doing it, and I don't really remember when all that happened, but out the other end, now whenever I look at old code, I look at it and I'm like, I can't figure out what I'm talking about, but that naming scheme right there will forever work for me, because there's no confusion about the difference between a destination and a source. They're clearly opposites, and so I can see that there's actually, I can now see that there's actually the same number of both of these, right? I don't know if that's totally clear. Actually, like, it should be clear that for every source there's a destination, but having fixed that naming, I now realize that these are still structure up array, and that their counts and maxes are separate for reasons I don't understand. And so we're going to keep digging down until we figure out why, and either fix it so that there's only one array, or we're going to understand why there's not a one-to-one relationship, which will help us better understand the structure of this data. And then we can leave it in a state where we, next time we visit it, or at least the next time I visit it, I clearly can just glean the whole meaning of it off in one step. The other thing I have to stop doing is mixing structures and procedures. It's a thing I stopped doing about, I don't know, 6 months ago, and it's definitely worth it. There's something confusing going on here that I don't fully remember. There's the jump buffer with all the jumps in it. We go. Not sure why that's organized in that order instead of this one. Okay, not sure why that's in that order instead of this one. Then we get this if here, which actually is local, so we can't do that again. Location count is greater than 0, then if prev parse location buffer ID. Buffer, location buffer, get buffer. Line number flags. So if this is not the same buffer as the previous one, oh, I know why. Okay, so it's not actually source and destination. It's each of these is a source, but each of these is an array of destinations. What's being used by another process? Stop it. And that's why it's not one-to-one. Because for every source position, we actually might be emitting more than or less than one destination array, because the destination array groups multiple destinations into one. Ugh. Alright. This dot handles, this dot handle count equals make sticky jump destination array, prev jump count, new handle. Wait, why am I not freeing general memory free? So that's just a memory leak that we just fixed. That's what you get for using the freaking heap allocation scheme. Gotta find ways to get off that heap. That's why we were doing structure of arrays. It was so we could binary search the darn thing. Okay. So what we gotta do now is handles start. So we're taking that, looking for this index. Here's the count, and we're going to want to add a stride. Now, how do we implement this with a stride? Well, we're just going to go uint8t raw equals uint8t array. Uint32k equals uint32 pointer dereference raw plus stride times I. If k is less than x, if k is greater than x. There we go. Not star, darn it. Right, okay. So start isn't really a good name, handle is not a good name. We gotta fix all those names in a second here. I'm gonna go put comments on what they need to be named, as now I understand what they actually are. So it's not start, rather it's um, um, first index first source index. Next of first source. Alright. Marker list. Jump line numbers means jumps line number address, and we want the size of jumps for our stride. Jumps line number Alright, so that's for getting a particular jump index. Right, okay. Source index first jump index. Jumps line number, size of jumps. This one just gets the nearest instead of the exact one. And then I can put in an index and we get a line number back by going boop, boop, boop. jumps flag. Flags. Alright. Let's see if that works. There's a possibility that we just ruined the sticky jumps and we have a much bigger problem to deal with. Let's try drama clock. Alt. Wait, how do I build drama clock? Oh, it's got to build in there. Load, open all code. Drama clock. Will you please introduce one little problem like this? Then boom. But what if I edit it like that? Then what do you do? Boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Interesting. So that one didn't move for some reason. I guess I can understand why. But if I did that, it would. Yeah, okay. Alright. Great, I think it's working just fine. All we're going to do is try and rebuild, walk around again, try and rebuild, walk around again, not have that open, walk around, close this, build, walk around, close it, walk. Ah! There's a problem. Alright, so we execute a command. That command goes to the next jump with no skips using sticky jumps. Go to next filtered jump. We go to get jump from list. So, where did that list come from? That got passed in there. That list jump state. Get locked jump state has this list which contains 153 sources. You can see it has one destination, and of those 153 jumps that it can go to, the problem is that we have all of them are jumping into this buffer here with this handle. When we try to use that handle to get something back, we'll find out that we have a problem. And so if we ever jump to something that has just been closed, we crash. Now that is supposed to be impossible, and yet it's happening. So let me take a quick look at some things. Hooks, sticky jump, end file close jump list. And sticky end file close jump list. Get marker list for buffer if list. Free marker list, marker list for buffer. Oh wow, that doesn't actually solve the problem, does it? Okay, so we have a straight up bug in the sticky jump system, which is that if one of the destinations oh geez, okay. I need to think this through. And normally I would do this in a notebook, but I've got all of you folks here watching, so why not try to um, try to show it. Okay. There we go. Good enough. So here's the situation. We have multiple buffers. Each buffer is going to be drawn as one of these little rectangles that you can imagine are all similar in shape, and they all have like text in them, right? So there's our buffers. Now, what a marker is, how do I, there we go. What a marker is we can take these and sort of attach to them arrays of markers, which are like these. I'll draw them like this. And so, with these things attached, and you can attach multiple marker arrays on each one, right? I'll simplify the drawing a little bit and just say that let's draw them like this. They're these little attached things that are like and you know each of these blocks is actually the full array, but I'm saving space, right? And so we have all these arrays of markers attached, some of them. And so say that we want to model what's happening with the error list there. Suppose this one here is our special errors or jumps, right? So we'll say this one is special, it contains jumps. That's its purpose in life. And these two have things we might want to jump to. Then what happens is we attach onto this internally a marker list, and onto this internally a marker list, and both of those marker lists say into this buffer where the jumps are. And the reason they're attached to these buffers is now anytime an edit happens on this buffer, this marker list needs to be modified. Anytime an edit happens on this buffer, this marker list needs to be modified, right? And so they have to be attached like this so that they can stay synced with the buffer that they're sticking into. And then this thing is not attached strongly because these are attached in the core. Rather, the custom layer sort of associates this buffer to a sort of structure called the marker list, which has references to these things as well. Right? So now the buffer can directly reference these guys. This buffer can directly reference him, and this buffer can directly reference this one. And then these folks over here are kind of loosely linked together in the custom code by a hash table that says for any buffer I can tell you what its list structure is unless it doesn't have one, in which case I'll return a null. And the list structure can say, okay, well I have pointers to here and here, right? Which tell me that when I was parsing this jump list, I found these locations and I saved them. So what the current thing does is when a file ends, it says, hey, do we have this loose connection that we can query easily? If so, yes. Alright, then I want to delete it and all of these markers. So when this gets deleted, all of this gets deleted with it, is the idea. But what happens when, say, this buffer gets closed? What happens is this reference here isn't actually updated. The marker array gets deleted, the buffer gets deleted, the reference right here, we don't actually have anything in here that points us back to here or back to here, and so nothing happens. Now, what we are going to need to fix this is we're going to need a little bit of work internally. Because I'm realizing as I explain it that the lack of a way to look up from here to here or to here is actually our primary problem. When we're deleting a buffer, right, when we're closing a buffer, it's not good enough to say that we can check what's loosely connected here, and it's not good enough to say that we could even query give me all of the marker handles or something, which we could do, because even with this marker handle we can't get back here. What we would have to be able to do is say, give me this marker handle, and actually you're going to have to give me all of them, but for each one what I would have to do is say give me, then I'm going to iterate all the buffers and check if any of them have a loosely associated marker list, and then I'm going to take that marker list and iterate it to see if I'm inside of it and remove myself. That's kind of wild and stupid, right? So here are some options. The brute force, just solve this problem with a sledgehammer solution is every time a file buffer gets closed, we delete all of these things. No matter how many of them there are, we iterate all of them and delete them all, and then they will just get reparsed anyway. And so when it gets reparsed, it would reopen this buffer as soon as it needs to anyway, right? Now we could do a slightly subtler thing that doesn't do that, but says visit all of these and go into them and remove my markers directly, right? Which is what I was suggesting we could do. The reason that becomes more difficult is just that we have to do more iterations to do all of that sub-removal. What we'd really like is we'd really like to be able to say, hey, whenever this thing gets deleted, I want to be able to iterate its markers and query sort of metadata that gets attached to them somehow that points me back to things I care about, right? That's kind of what we want. Because then that metadata could be anything. If you just need a pointer back to something, it can be a back reference. If you need callbacks to do arbitrarily absurd shit, you can put that in there. It can be any data you want. Right? So what I'm basically suggesting is the current method, if I draw this whole thing out, of storing this is that it's just one of these things, an array. And it has actually a header to it that is, you could say that these are all actual buffer positions, and that this thing here is a specialized header. And that specialized header is basically a pointer back to this buffer and a counter of how many of these there are, and how, like, it's technically a max and it's like a capacity and a count, I think. But so we have this header here already. What if we can stuff arbitrarily sized data in there too, right? When we create this thing, and then query that back when whenever the user wants. And then what could happen is, in addition to all the default stuff, we associate to this buffer one of these things and one of these things, and when we're creating those, we loosely associate this thing to this buffer that points here and here. And then when we're creating these, we stuff into their headers back pointers to this list. So every handle will know which list it lives in, right? Because we're the ones creating and owning these things. They won't belong in multiple lists ever because we say so. Now, other people could get into more complicated situations where one marker array might end up living in different data structures, and there are multiple back references that need to be stored. And that's why we're saying you can store an arbitrarily complex data structure here, right? And we'll have it stored inline. We won't have them pass a pointer to something they have to allocate themselves. We'll just have them pass the whole data right there. So, then the only thing that could possibly go wrong is that we're storing a reference this way to something that doesn't live forever. But that won't happen because the only time this ever gets deleted, or the only time this thing gets deleted, it also goes and deletes all of this anyway because it controls it all. So I think this is the correct solution. Bloop. So we're going to have to do some plumbing on the internals today to fix this one. So let's get to it. Alright, so let's go and visit the API implementation first of all, and look for marker. So when we add markers, we give it the buffer and the marker count that we want, and it returns to us this. We're going to now extend this. That's basically all there is to that. It's now going to also contain user data and uint32 user data size. And let's go ahead and do the, I don't know what you want to call it, the implementation side, and instead of the user side first. I'm pretty sure that that's what the user side is going to need. Let's just compile it and fix all the errors in the order that the compiler gives them to us, because we really got to go both directions from this point here. This is the point we know, and we're going to fan out from here. So one thing we know is with that data, well, this is why we should do the internals first, because this is actually going to compile even though we need it to do more stuff than it can, so we want to break this up a bit more. Allocate markers state. Models, file, we get a file. If that file is not equal to 0, we allocate markers, marker count. Let's just pass the user data and user data size in right there. Alright, marker handle, buffer add markers. So this is taking us to the custom side first. Here we don't need this, so we'll pass 0, 0. Alright, here what we're going to need is whenever we add markers, we want to have a pointer back at the list, right? Marker list. Now there's a problem. We're making a marker list on the stack and then returning it, which means this is all gonna fail. We're gonna have to switch this to init a marker list. Alright, take a pointer to that list and the size of the list pointer. There you go. Come on. Build for me. Oh my gosh, you're so slow. Okay. There we go. Add those markers. Again, we're taking a pointer to the list and the size of the list pointer. And then we don't need to return anything. And then we don't set marker list for buffer marker list pointer result equals yeah, so the problem here is this whole thing is structured so that we pass in some marker list and then it comes out, but that means that the marker list has to be fixed at the correct address from the beginning, not like passed around like a value like this. We're using its address specially now, which we weren't doing before. So none of this is correct. So let's rewrite this. Doesn't work this way anymore. Get marker list footer for buffer. Right, okay. So all of this code I want to preserve. Alright, so there's a global set of marker lists. And here we just say which index we want to delete. And then we shift it back and subtract 1, and that's the whole thing. Whoops. I accidentally resized the font there. That's why it all went funky for a second. Sometimes we're going to want to be able to do it like this. go. If we did not find this and the list did not equal 0, then markers list count is greater than or equal to 0, marker list slot. So this isn't a hash table, which is nice. It's just a linear array. Glad I did that. Makes my life easy right now. So if this is greater than or equal to the max, then we say, okay, please grow this. Otherwise, double, yeah, so if it's equal to the max, grow it. That's what these whole set of lines here are for. If it just reallocs the whole thing, then I'm still fucked. I'm still fucked. The indexes aren't stable. Alright, I need to do a linked list. Okay. So you're gone, all of this shit is totally wrong. Here we go. So the reason I need to do this is because I need the pointers to be, like, fixed. I need them to be correct perpetually. And so that means I need to be able to do a system where well, it means I need to do a linked list. That's what it means. I can't have the reallocation of the array. I could have done an array of pointers to these things, but then it's a pain in the ass, and worse than if you just did the linked list because of all the allocation struggles you have to do. So this is the way. Marker list slots dot next, while node does not equal 0, and well, it's, yeah, and nodes, well, I might as well just do this then. Marker slot, marker list first, last, does not equal 0, node equals node next. We don't, no, we're going to want that. Okay. Node buffer ID equals that, then result equals the node's list, and we found a result break. If we did not find a result, and the list that we were trying to set, okay, that shit's just gone. If we did not find a result, make new, whoops, it should be bool 32, make new if not found, and make new if not found. Then what we do is we say, don't do any of that, because fuck you. Gen array, you know, bring that code back just so I can reference how the fucking gen array thing works here. General marker list node, 1 marker list node, here's our new node, the new node buffer ID equals buffer ID, new node, list equals shit, don't do anything with that. Probably want to memset that actually. New node list. Set the new node list to 0. There's the size of it. And the result is the new nodes list. The marker list count is technically not necessary. We'll get rid of both of those, get rid of you, and there we go. So now I can say, look this thing up, tell me, make a new one if you don't find one, possibly, and then we can do static void delete marker list node, and now I have to check and see if, I have to actually, whoa, did not mean to do that, sticky jumps, marker list node, yeah, we're gonna find out. Node macros. SLL. Okay, we're going to want to add ZDLL. So the ZDLL works like this. You can push back first last node, do while 0 if first equals last. Why do I always do all this shit? Why don't I just do this? FLN. So if the first and last both equals 0, well, we'll just do if the first equals 0 to make life easier. Then first equals last. Why don't I just get rid of all this extra space here? If then first equals last equals the new node, else last next equals the node, and last equals the node. And the nodes next equals the same thing as the nodes previous, equals 0. Here the nodes previous equals last. Why don't we do it this way? Set the node and then set the first last stuff. Previous equals last, next equals 0, last's next equals node, and then last equals node. So there's ZDLL pushback, and then we want ZDLL remove first last node, ZDLL remove first last node, ZDLL remove first last node, do while, oh my gosh, why don't I just do this? Ta-da! Alright. If first equals the node, then first equals if first equals the node and last equals the node, then first equals last equals 0. Else, if just first equals the node, then first equals first next, wait, if last equals the node, then last equals last previous. And those will both be 0 if this is the only node, so then they'll both be 0'd anyway. And then finally we can do... oh, shit. We only want to do DLL remove style stuff if this one's in the middle. Okay. Got it. Okay. So if the first equals the node, then the first next is that, and then the first prev is 0. Else, the node's prev next becomes the node's next, right? And then same thing on this guy. If the last equals the node, then the last equals the last prev, and the last next needs to be reset to 0. Otherwise, the node's next previous needs to equal the node's previous. Now, is there any way that doing doing these in this order could lead to a problem? What if node's previous has changed? Is that possible? Well, we're changing someone's previous right here, but that's only in the case when first equaled node, so the node's previous hasn't been changed yet. Here the node's previous hasn't actually been changed, but something inside of it has been changed. But if we did this, and this would be the same as if we just did a DLL remove, which does work. Now the last's previous, can't that have changed? Yes, this can be the problem. If we do this, but then this is actually 0, right? Alright, I'm going to change it and do it a different way. Else f equals f next, f prev equals 0. Alright, so this is guaranteed to work because if we do it this way, then if these are equal, then those will get both cleared, and that'll be that. Otherwise, the last isn't changing at all, and the first is getting moved forward 1, and then setting its previous to 0. And we know that moving forward 1 is safe because since first does not equal last, there must be something else after first. Last equals last prev, last next equals 0, and then what we can do is we go, okay, if f equals n, then do DLL remove front. Whoops, zdll remove front. fln. Else, if l equals n, so we're in the case where this did not pass, but this one will. It'll be a little redundant because it's going to check that again anyway, but what can you do? It's not that big a deal. Remove back fln, else we'll just DLL remove n. Okay, ZDLL push back marker list first, marker list last, node. Wait, that's not... Now I have to ask this other question, which is, does that even... No, it's not even... Okay, so this is not going to go here because I'm a dick. I'm going to go over to helper, I'm just going to tag this shit in right here. So that's where I push back right there. Perfect. Up here, we're going to do zdll remove, and then these parameters here. What? Oh, shit. Okay, so that's good. Let's see how the chat's doing. That was a lot of work. Nothing new in the chat, so I don't have to answer any questions or nothing, folks. Alright. DLL remove. Ah, shit. Alright. Alright, yep, now none of this is useful anymore, because we just allocate a node and stick it on the linked list. So it's not just my imagination that this is completely useless, right? Yikes, can't do that. I hate passing booleans as parameters. Let's see here. Get marker list for buffer. get marker list for buffer, make if not found. So why aren't we just doing that right there and screw you? Oh, because we want to see if this is the first time. Fair enough, we'll do it this way. I don't give a shit. Nah, we'll do it this way. So, make new marker list for buffer. Buffer ID, result, return result, marker list, buffer ID, make new marker list for buffer, init marker list takes these guys and we fill this thing. Whoops. There we go. Might as well do this and this while we're at it. Global, let's just take that and make it a parameter. Take that, pass it along right there. Alright, get marker list for buffer. Get marker list, don't make new. Get marker list. Looks like I always do don't make new, so I'm going to go ahead and say we don't need you. Okay. Don't make new, you're gone. You're gone. Global general. Do. Did I miss some chat? I might have missed some chat when my computer logged off. Because it looked like there was nothing new, but I didn't see it. If there are questions, go ahead and ask them again. I haven't seen the chat for a while, and it looks like Twitch is saying I missed some. I'll try and update my sleep settings so that I don't miss again. But it's looking like I must have missed some questions. Based on Tears TV's comment. Let's see. Energy saver. Where's the thing that controls, like, sleep settings? Is it displays? It's not displays, right? No. Alright, I'm actually going to take a quick 5-minute break to fill up water, grab the charger for the laptop, and then I'll get back and work on this. So any questions that I missed, get them reposted again if you want the answers, and I will also try to fix this when I get back. See you in a bit.